Hi, my name is Brenda Titus and welcome to my video series, My Year Recovering from Retinal Detachment. This is the 9th video in my series, so if you haven't seen my prior videos, I definitely recommend that you go back and begin there. Now today we will be talking about over-the-counter eye drops. And as a reminder, this is my personal story and my own journey through recovering from retinal detachment surgery. And so I'm not here to provide medical advice, but I thought I would share some interesting information that I learned about eye drops through this process. So especially because I did decide to do this as a whole separate video unto itself, because this was a very difficult and frustrating part of my recovery. Kind of at this point, I was done with the prescription eye drops, or I was making my way through them, and I just noticed that my eyes just didn't feel right. They felt very uncomfortable. I was straining a lot when I was working or driving, and it would just become very frustrating for me. And actually early on in this process, I had also started really noticing the discomfort as the stitches were coming out or dissolving or whatever it was that they were doing. And so that's kind of the beginning of this journey, is that my husband went to the pharmacy for me, and he kind of, talked to the pharmacist, trying to figure out what was the best option, given, well, yes, I had red eyes. Yes, they were itchy. And I was not a eye drop user before any of this. Now, and I'll actually add a picture maybe in the comments, there's a lot of options out there for eye drops. And this was all completely new to me. I was not an eye drop user. And so, based on the fact that I had itchy eyes and red eyes and uncomfortable eyes, he came home and he had kind of a variety where they said, well, try these. And so, so I did find one that I happened to felt the best. It was maybe like a red eye, but it had like this cooling nature to it. So of course it felt good to use them for the first few weeks, so which we'll talk about in a minute. So, I start using the eye drops. Well, and they were a red eye drop. One of the things that I learned after a few weeks is that you shouldn't use red eye drops for an extended period of time. And the reason that I figured this out was that the first couple of weeks it felt good to use them, and after a while it was kind of that it just felt worse to use them. And so I kind of went through this frustration, and so I Googled it and looked up things, and that was when I learned the difference between red eye drops and dry eye drops. And so I started kind of looking for other options. Well, then there really was this idea of having to detox from red eye drops. And so then I got, kind of a different brand. And I mean, I was going through a different brand like every week. I would look at the different, active ingredients and what was the purpose and what were some of the inactive ingredients. It was actually, I have another picture that I'll try to post, I'll share, and it shows, all the different drops that I bought, because I kind of joked that I felt like I was my own little, human experiment, because I was just trying to figure out what was going to feel better. Well, one day it did kind of click back in my mind, or I was looking through my notes. I was maybe preparing to see my doctor, and he had actually said the phrase artificial tears. And so then I realized, okay, well, is that something different than red eye drops, dry eye drops? And so I tried, that was kind of through some of this process of, well, what is the difference? What is artificial tears? And like I said, I tried many different varieties, and one day I had lunch with a friend, and she was very wise in, as we kind of just expressed my frustration, and I kind of, this is a common look for me, as I just put my head in my hands and say, I'm just so frustrated. I don't know what to do. And she had to kind of remind me that in the midst of all of this, I didn't even know what normal felt like anymore. I didn't know what my eyes were supposed to feel like. And she said, well, if you're expecting them to feel like they did before, and I thought, well, I never even really thought about what my eyes felt like before. And it did remind me of something that we talk about in the hypnosis office quite a bit, which is that what we put all of our focus and all of our energy into, it becomes more vibrant and bigger and stronger. So the fact that I constantly was so focused on my discomfort with my eyes, that they felt so dry and gritty and all of that, it was kind of becoming this, self-perpetuating issue and challenge. And quite frankly, I needed to figure out how to let it go. And so instead of obsessing over maybe this eye drop and that eye drop, I did find one that I felt was probably the best option and was giving me the best relief. And I said, okay, I'm just going to stop trying. Clearly, there's not much better. And so I stuck with that one, but I also really worked towards using it less and less frequently. And so that was a really big part of all of that. And so actually by now, I only use them if it's, if my eyes are pretty irritated, and I try not to, just so I don't get really stuck on that all over again. So that's what I wanted to share in this video about eye drops. I thought it was kind of an interesting thing if you weren't aware of red eye drops or artificial tears or dry eye, all different kinds of things that are out there. And quite frankly, especially because my vision was very challenged, picking eye drops was also quite a challenge. I did a lot of this online where I could look on my phone and make these comparisons. So a couple of takeaways for this video. First is obviously follow your doctor's advice and instructions, but also be sure that you understand what your doctor's advice and instructions are. Now, had I thought about this a year ago when I was talking to my doctor, maybe it would have been helpful to understand what he meant by, quote, artificial tears, and especially the issue of the red eyes, the red eye drops, because that was probably the bigger issue. And then of course the other takeaway that I want to be aware of when we think about, first follow your doctor's advice, but be sure you understand their instructions. But then the other part was about that, what we focus on becomes stronger. And sometimes, what did I write? Oh, focusing on what we focus on becomes stronger. So we have to be really careful about what we are focusing on. But also, sorry, my vision is still not great, so I'm trying to read my notes. It says, sometimes we can't, focus so much on what we focus so much on the challenge instead of focusing on what we want. And actually with my lunch with my friend, I had to kind of, really be aware, and what is getting better? That's what my notes say, is we also have to be sure that we are taking note of what is getting better. And, I'd kind of lost all of that because I was so frustrated with what was challenging me. So those are some tidbits for today. I hope that you enjoy learning and watching. I'll have some links in the video description about retinal detachment, and I hope that you're learning something from my journey, whether it's about eye drops or this journey in general. And my next video is going to be about risk factors for retinal detachment. It's something I kind of skipped over in the beginning, but I wanted to come back to that as I'm going into more in-depth topics. So with that, I hope that you have a wonderful day, and thank you for joining me.